Okay, welcome back. Joining us now is one of the most talented men doing the rounds in the United States of America right now. You'll see him in Ring of Honor, many other top promotions over there. He's currently over on this side of the water. 2 months he's traveling around Britain, and yes, we're talking about you. He's traveling around England, Britain, All-Star Wrestling, FWA, pretty much all around this whole area. It's a pleasure to welcome Colt Cabana. Word.
Thanks. Hi.
Hey, how you doing, Colt?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing great. How long you been in the neighborhood?
Well, I stopped by about a month ago, and I got another month to go, so that's a 2-month span.
How have you been finding it?
I've had a great time. People are nice. The cars are weird. Everyone likes tea and coffee.
They sure do.
Yes.
I always have my mug of tea right here on the show. It's important to have your tea.
I guess
on the show. If this is America, it'd be coffee. If we're shooting this in New York, but we're shooting this in England and Ireland.
Okay.
England now. What's different between working in England and the U.S., North America?
Well, here at the grocery stores, the people sit down in the chairs, like when the cash register people. And when they check you out and they sit down, and it's probably the greatest thing ever to be working over here in England because you don't have to stand all day. And you just sit down and they give you a chair. It's probably good for your back. Don't have to get calluses or athlete's foot. So that's probably one of the big pluses for working over in England.
I know. I have heard rumors that they take like $1 out of their paycheck every hour for that.
For the chair?
That's what I've heard. I'm not sure if it's true.
Well, it could be worth it out of pure laziness of the workers. I would do it. I'd pay $1 or maybe £1 or £2.
Well, maybe you can look into that.
Well, I will. I plan on bringing that back to America because I think it's ingenious that people sit down when, why haven't Americans thought of that?
Well, maybe you could patent it. You could anybody who sits when they're serving someone in a department store or a grocery store, they'd have to pay you $1 an hour.
I'll take it.
There we go. Colt the Millionaire Cabana.
You know what? The clapper was. It takes one idea. Just takes one idea.
How about in the ring? What's the difference there?
Oh, wrestling.
Yeah. When you're graps, as we call it.
So, man, there's a lot of difference. It depends because England has. It's very weird how I picked it up. England has kind of been influenced by American wrestling, and now when you go over to the indie style, a lot of it has been influenced by Britain wrestling.
Yes.
So it's kind of always the grass is greener on the other side kind of thing. So for some of the more entertaining shows, I find a lot of the American wrestling the same, so it's not hard for myself. But also over here in England, a lot of the veterans and the old British way, the old World of Sport wrestling. I've noticed the brush up and how it works and the shell eyes. That it's interesting and I love it. And so. The technical aspect of it also, of how the British wrestling works is very different from the American, where there's a lot of different exchange, a lot of more kind of amateur, kind of like a high-speed amateur.
Right.
That's what it seems like, as opposed to American style, where it's more telling a story with your mouth as opposed to with your body and with your hands.
Right. Have you found it difficult to adapt to the style?
Well, I don't really, coming over as an American, I don't see it that I should be adapting. Don't take it that way. That
I hope none of your opponents are listening to this because you're gonna get a smack.
Yeah, exactly. But as an American feature, I think they want to see
the style
the American. Yes.
Right.
But at the same time, I also try to bring in a little of the British stuff that I've taken from here. So I've tried to put that. I'm intertwining it slowly but surely. I'm now becoming a British wrestler.
Do you think you might bring some of the things you've learned here back and use them in the States?
Of course, and that's one of the most important reasons why I'm over here is to learn the British way of wrestling and the etiquette and the style and the culture and bring it back to America for something different, spice it up a little. I think it's very important.
Now, in America, when British wrestlers go over there, there's very few that are known. Doug Williams, Nigel McGuinness are making waves in Ring of Honor. Johnny Storm and Jody Fleisch have had some great matches. But by and large, it's very difficult, whereas from what I've seen coming back the other direction, it's different. Do people know who you are from your exposure in the U.S.? When you come out of the curtain, people go, "Oh, that's Colt Cabana. I saw him."
I find it there are people who know who I am, and especially like at the FWA shows, where they're very smart to the internet and just different ways of getting their news and stuff, as opposed to just going to the local town every week.
Right.
You know, so I find it that I am getting and it's weird because, you know, I'm an American. I've traveled the States, and you know, I came over here for 4 days last year, but that's about it. But you know, people do know, and especially with the wrestling channel now showing Ring of Honor,
right,
and stuff like that, it makes for even better exposure. So there are people who know who I am. Yeah.
Now, since you've come over to England, I know you've had a very hectic schedule. Of course, in the States, indie dates are harder to come by. The territories don't really exist anymore.
Yeah.
It's each promotion has maybe a show or two a month,
right,
and it's all over instead of one promotion touring all the time.
Right.
Have you experienced this heavy schedule in the U.S. as you've had over here the last
Heavy
month?
what?
Heavy schedule.
Schedule.
Schedule. Schedule, sir.
Schedule.
Schedule.
Schedule, yes. Yeah, it's interesting.
You're in our part of the territory now. You sneak our way.
I will adapt, and I will eat your oregano and your tomatoes. Yes.
Okay, but that has to be after 8 p.m.
Oh, schedule.
Schedule.
Schedule. So, yeah, it's interesting. Back home, you wrestle 2-3 times a week on the weekends during the week. I'm in Chicago, training, hanging out, you know, studying, watching tapes, doing whatever. Here I'm on the road all week, especially with All-Star Wrestling. Brian Dixon's All-Star Wrestling is kind of what I'm doing during the weekdays. And we travel from town to town, East Coast to West Coast, to down south to up north. And it's just you're in a car and you're traveling and you're getting to see the world. But at the same time, you're not at home, you know, you're not. So it's different, and it is back, a callback to the territories and just going from town to town, and it's something that I'm glad that I've had to experience, because, you know, back home, especially a guy like Tracy Smothers, who's still wrestling now,
right,
who wrestled in the territories, was always saying, you know, Colt, I wish there was territories again. You know, all you guys would have jobs, everybody would be eating, you know, and it was so cool, you know, you go to town, and that's what he would say, and I knew, you know, from watching tapes and hearing, you know, shoot interviews or whatever, I knew that they existed, but you never really got to experience them, and that's
the feel, yeah.
And that's something that's kind of going on right now over here, and I'm appreciative of it. So,
well, you've worked with a lot of great stars. Of course, Tracy Smothers, people will know from runs in WWF all over the place. Also, Dusty Rhodes, you had an interaction with at Ring of Honor. Ricky the Dragon Steamboat. First of all, how'd you find those two guys to work with? Because, of course, they're two of the greatest legends in modern wrestling. Yeah,
well, first of all, Ricky Steamboat's the biggest class act going in wrestling today. He would take that, just anyone who wanted to learn, he was willing to spread his information. And all the years that he's done stuff, he was willing to let learn. And now that, you know, the Second City Saints were kind of on his side, you know. Yeah. We kind of made a formation. It's even better because he's taken us, you know, within his grasp and willing to give us, you know, the knowledge that he's done for so many years. And so he's a class act, and it's just great to be around him. And Dusty was cool too. You know, I did an interview segment with him, and Dusty was always kind of, you know, like an inspiration in interviews. You know, like funky like a monkey, you know, baby. You know, just he was out there. He wasn't the, you know, I am pro wrestling, grrr. That wasn't him. That wasn't his shtick, and that's what got him over. That's why people loved him, because he was just the son of a plumber, you know?
Right.
So, and it was great to be a part of it. It was really something that when I stepped through the doors of training school, you know, 6 years ago and 7 years ago, you know, I wouldn't have dreamed that I would be able to do an interview with Dusty Rhodes, and it just says a lot, you know? Yeah.
Okay, quick question. Do you think Ricky the Dragon is going to come back for one more match? Because there's been a lot of talk about that.
Well, there's a lot of talk, and I'm not Ricky the Dragon Steamboat. You know, I don't have his back, or, you know, that's his call. You just have to wait and see, I guess. I'm not sure.
Now, like you're saying, you started off 6 years ago. You've been all over the place. Someone sees your resume. You've been all over the place in the U.S., and now you're obviously also expanding your horizons internationally. Is that travel, is that something that you want to do, or is it something that you need to do?
A little bit of both. When I first came into wrestling, there's guys, there's local guys, and then there's guys who get all around. And I wanted to be the guy that got all around. And I wanted to be the guy who who people would see. Wow, Colt Cabana was in Minnesota on Thursday. He was in St. Louis on Friday. He was in Ohio on Saturday. He was in Kalamazoo, Michigan on Sunday. And they're like, well, how's he doing? What's going on? Why is he so known all over? And that's how you get your name out. And that's how people know who you are from different places and different territories in indie wrestling in the United States, if that's what we have. So I love the travel. That's part of being a wrestler. You make your rounds. You go on the road. If you're lucky enough, you get to go in different airports and even sleep in different airports and whatever. That's part of the wear and tear, and that's part of the wrestling business, and that's why I love it.
The scene in the States the last 10 years has become very difficult for someone up and coming, such as yourself in the last 6 years, because, of course, as we talked about, the territories have faded away. Vince McMahon and WCW and ECW sort of started coming up, but then both WCW and ECW folded. So now it's like there's only 30, 40 good slots at all in the business, and there is so much talent. How difficult is it? Because it used to be indies are where you learn your craft. These days, indies are bursting with 5-star guys.
Sure.
How hard is it for a guy to break in?
It's not nearly impossible, but it's hard to break in. You got the WWE, and that's where all the jobs are. And then besides that, there aren't a lot of guys making livings for themselves. Yeah. We're trying. I'm fortunate enough to make a living as a wrestler, and that's always been my dream, and I'm doing it. But, after that, there's, Ring of Honor, CZW, and just a bunch of these other, all these other promotions where people will take notice. But, like you said, back then, 10 years ago, the bigger indie promotions, you could always kind of get a spot because people were always moving up or moving down to Memphis, blah, blah, blah. So now, you just have to fight to get a spot in one of the bigger promotions. And so it's really like an honor. It's an honor as a wrestler for myself to be wrestling in Ring of Honor because I know that I've had to fight and claw and make my way to, the top promotions in the indie scene in the U.S.
Now, you touched on the Second City Saints.
Sure.
You and CM Punk, when did you guys start working together? You've been great partners and great rivals.
Well, we trained together back in Chicago. And we both were guys that wanted to go St. Louis, Minnesota, all around the country, just being known as wrestlers. And I think that helped us a lot as kind of being as a tandem. Because you'd always hear Colt Cabana and CM Punk, and you'd always hear us together to different places, and people started taking notice. And then they started watching us wrestle, and, hopefully they were impressed. So we started training together. So we've known each other throughout our whole wrestling careers. And then when we got the call, when we went up to Ring of Honor, I think they wanted to try to dabble and, maybe him going doing this, me going doing that. But we just had such a natural chemistry, all of us together, because we've been on the roads for so long. Right. We've done everything. So it was just natural that we went together. And, of course, with Ace Steel, who trained both of us. There you go, Second City Saints, Chicago,
How did you guys wind up getting called up to Ring of Honor?
Our names were out there for so long, and we were doing so many good things, and people, I think, took notice, and they started up. I saw Rob at a 3PW show, and he asked for a tape, and he said he heard such great things, and he wanted us to be part of the show, and then a year went by, and I was like, and then all of a sudden, Punk got a call, and they were talking how they wanted to bring us in for so long, but they had so many storylines and so much. They had to finish storylines and then start new ones, and that's a show of a great promotion. Right. Not just bing, bing, bing and storylines. They had plans for Punk and Cabana, and but it was like 8 months down the line. And it was weird they never told us, but right. So but I wasn't turning it down, and I don't think Punk was either.
Yeah. Well, the old favorite is, we have plans, just hang on there. So
Well, exactly. Yeah. And that was one of their things too. They didn't want to speak a big game before big bark, no bite.
Now, a criticism of a lot of independent wrestling promotions in the U.S. is that because they're run by people who are very inside, smart kind of fans, they're geared towards the inside fans, really, really hardcore fans, and because of that, it's not as accessible to just the mainstream Hulkamaniac type people. Do you think that the amount of knowledge which is required to appreciate some of the styles in Ring of Honor or other bigger U.S. indies actually keeps them from drawing in more of a mainstream audience?
It's interesting you say that. The goal of wrestling, you know, is obviously to sell tickets, and in Ring of Honor, it's like kind of to sell videotapes.
Right.
But you want to bring in the casual fan, and that's the most important thing. And Ring of Honor, and I'm just going to speak from Ring of Honor's kind of point of view, is that they have such a great product that when they bring in a casual fan and they bring in the Midnight Express, who maybe some older guys will remember, you know, who older people remember, you know, back when they were kids. Well, let's go, wow, Midnight Express is coming. They're all 4 of them. Let's go watch them. And then all of a sudden they see the Ring of Honor product, and it's such an awesome thing that it'll, next time they're in town, they'll buy a Ring of Honor ticket. And that's, I think, you know, the idea is that, yeah, it's not, you know, Hulkamania, blah, 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 but if you come in and you watch it, or if your friend gives you a videotape or a DVD, and you see the product, and you know, and you see Doug Williams, you know, doing crazy British stuff that no one's ever seen in the States before, or Jack Evans doing, you know, flippity flips, and Colt Cabana making somebody laugh, then, you know, all of a sudden, you know, wow, that's, you know, wow, I'll pay my, you know, $15.
So you think there's a broad enough appeal there?
There's so much going on, and it's just such a, altogether, it's such a great package that,
right.
You know, what you got to do is get the casual fan in the door, and I think, you know, that's how you got to do it. You know, how you do it, that's up to the promoters or the advertisers.
Right.
And but I think a great idea is some of these older guys coming in, especially for Ring of Honor, Ricky Steamboat, Dusty Rhodes, you know, Abdullah the Butcher was coming in, Midnight Express, Jim Cornette's there with them. So, and if not that, you know, then it's word of mouth, friends giving DVDs, you know, wearing T-shirts. You know, what's that? It's Ring of Honor. It's really cool. Check it out. Blah, blah, blah. Hey, come to my house. Eat some Oreos. That's how I interpret it, how people would do it. Because Oreos are really good.
Unless you break them and they just frustrate. I'm not good with my hands.
I just kind of chuck 2 in at a time.
Well, there you go. You see, you go for the heart of it.
Hey.
You take it out. Speaking of going to the heart of it, you've also wrestled with NWA TNA, which is now going for guts and glory. They got a big pay-per-view down in this coming November down in Florida. You've done some Explosion dates.
Is that your transition, the heart of it?
Yeah, you see, I just take whatever you say and I find a way. You see, Florida is kind of, for example,
where does the heart of it come into TNA?
Here's where we're going. You see, first of all, NWA TNA, right?
Okay.
They're going for the heart of wrestling. You see, they're putting all their money in and they're going for it. Here's another one. You see, they're going to be in Florida, right? Now, Florida is the heart of the
Gary
election
Hart?
coming up. No, the H-E-A-R-T.
Gary Hart lives in Florida.
Does he?
Uh-huh.
Do you have his number?
I know.
Oh, okay. Never mind that. Doesn't matter. But the point is that NWA TNA do have a pay-per-view coming up in November. You have worked with those guys before. Do you think you'll be back there? Have you any interest in working for those guys?
Man, I did one show for them. Yeah, there's interest in wrestling for NWA TNA, and you know, I hope maybe there's some interest on their part. And it's just, you know, it's kind of, there's so much politics in wrestling, and
yeah.
You know, maybe one day you'll see Colt Cabana on there, maybe not. It's.
Do you think in that case that the political climate in Ring of Honor is better, that's more geared towards talent than who you know, than NWA TNA perhaps?
I really can't speak for NWA TNA, you know. I can speak for Ring of Honor, and, you know, there's always politics in wrestling. I can't say it's too political there. It's because it is based on if you're a good wrestler, you're in. You know, if you're Mickey Mouse, you're out. You know, that's how it works. So, I would. That's all I can say. You know, I can't really speak for TNA.
Now, if you had the opportunity to go to WWE, yay or nay?
Sure. Yeah.
A lot of people working for the promotion right now are disgruntled because they don't feel that the storyline writing is up to par, and a lot of people are frustrated because they don't feel momentum.
Yeah.
Is that something, as someone sitting outside the company, you're kind of thinking, well, you know, you got a guaranteed contract, you're making this amount of money, deal with it, or what would be
well,
your attitude?
I've heard people say, you know, people outside of WWE saying how much, you know, who would care if, you know, saying the exact same thing you're saying, and then they actually get there, and then they're saying, you know, I'm frustrated. So it's interesting that you say that. I don't know. You know, I'd like, that's what I grew up watching, kind of thing. I'd like to, you know, it's a full time. It's, you know, there's structure there. There's kind of a guarantee, not a guarantee, you know, well, a guaranteed contract. So I'm not saying that I love it. I don't know. I don't know until something happens. But it's a place I'd like to see myself, hopefully in the future.
If you, hypothetical for you, if you go in and you're on the road, you're wrestling 5-minute matches a night instead of right now you're wrestling generally much longer matches than WWE house show matches. And who are you? I'm Colt Cabana. Who? My name is, right. Yeah, we're going to make you a cue card guy. Your gimmick is that you hold a cue card and you come out, right?
Yes.
There you go.
Cue card guy.
Would you be happy to sort of go into that and throw away the character you've developed? Would you be happy enough to try something completely new, even if you didn't believe in it,
well,
I've been
thinking of a couple things, like the world champion ping pong player.
That would rank up there with Isaac Yankem, I think.
Well, the Kool-Aid drinker. The Oreo eater. I've got plenty of them. So, if they want to pitch one of those ideas, I wouldn't want to do anything like a cue card guy. That's kinda...
So what you're saying basically is no matter how bad their idea, you'll come up with the worst one and make sure it happens.
What do you mean the worst one?
I mean that I think your ideas are intriguing.
Yeah,
and I would subscribe to your newsletter.
Oh, well, I appreciate that. And I'll send one to you if you give me your address.
Well, excellent. It's international postage, so I hope you know.
Budget is not a problem, my friend.
And speaking of promotions you have worked for, IWA Mid-South, we were on Ring of Honor a second ago. Fine.
No, we were on WWE and TNA a second ago, promotions that I don't work for.
But you did work for TNA.
All right.
Okay, fine. My transitions have just been destroyed. I'm very distraught now. I'm just thinking of packing.
That's a big word, so that would be distraught. I was impressed.
Okay, well, let's just simply go to IWA.
Okay.
Let's just head west and just zoom. Out we go.
Sure.
We're leaving New York. Zoom. We get on the road. Heading on over. Ian Rotten, you've worked there before. What do you think of working with the promotion? Of course, he held gold there, which means the company has invested in you. What do you think of working for them?
That's where I bit my nails. That's where I kind of made my name, understood who I was as a wrestler. I think it's where I really got my first time on the microphone, where I really got the first time to kind of do whatever I wanted. And I think that was kind of because he was like, do whatever you want. So. Which works well. I would go down there, and again, like you said, like the territory, and that's where I would meet guys like Bull Payne and American Kickboxer, Tarek the Great, guys who have actually done the territories before they died out.
Right.
They were doing, there was Memphis and Kick-Ass Wrestling down there. So it was interesting talking to them and seeing how it worked, and especially at such a young age. So
right.
Ian always gave me an opportunity to wrestle some of the better guys, some of the people that have been around. He has a locker room that is filled with people who understand wrestling, and so it was always a treat and a treasure and a pleasure, and that rhymed. Yes, and I'm a poet, but I do know it. So it was awesome wrestling for Ian.
Are you booking for my job?
Am I what?
No. Are you bucking for my job? Sitting there, just running me down, saying your poems. Oh, God, I'm disgusted.
Is that an English word?
No, it's not an English word.
Because in the States, bucking means something else. And I wouldn't climb the ladder like that, my friend.
Again, after 8 p.m. After 8 p.m. Okay. Ian Rotten's style is very different to yours. It's very hardcore. Right. Speaking of after 8 p.m. And there's, see, ha-ha, got you with that one. That was appropriate. Thank you.
Yes.
Now we're all like
we're
this.
on the right path.
That's it. Do you mind that style? Would you be, if someone said, okay, you're in a TLC match, we want you to rip yourself apart, every night. Yeah. Is that something you'd go for?
No, I'd probably punch him in the face.
Really?
Not the person in the ring.
Whoever told you to.
Well, TLC is completely different from a Taipei death on nails running over with a train match. It's a TLC. There could be meaning to it. No, don't get me wrong. There's meaning to a Taipei death match, and but it's kind of one end of the extreme to the other.
Right.
I've done chairs. I've done tables. I don't mind mixing it up with that. I have no desire to do a Taipei death match, a barbed wire match, a thumbtack match.
Right.
Shoot me in the face 9 times match. That's just not my thing. Do I like watching it? Yes. Okay, I'll be honest. Watching these people kill themselves is kind of amusing to me. For my entertainment, I appreciate it, but
it's not something you personally
not something I want to do.
Would endeavor to do.
No.
Do you find the expectations while you're over here in England are different upon you? That you won't see that style of match, you'll see it more, or?
I've seen a little bit of it. What do you mean?
Like when you're over here, like in the States, obviously, I mean, a lot of cards these days are very set. Okay, you guys are having the technical match.
Okay.
You guys are having the high flying. You guys are going to bleed all over the place and stuff pigs.
Right.
Is it the same kind of thing over here, or is it more traditional wrestling, do you find?
Well, what I've been on it is, kind of traditional wrestling. With FWA, they kind of go around the spectrum a lot. They kind of have different aspects, and it's cool. Because they're catering to a different audience than some of the other promotions. So,
right.
Again, and that's the same way as in the States, I guess. There's different promotions that cater to different people.
Yeah.
So it just it depends on the cards. Yeah, the people, the fans are different and the wrestlers are different, but there's always going to be promotions that just cater to who they want to cater to, and that's the audience they want. And that's the same thing. You're not trying to get. Well, you might be catering to old ladies, but I think your demographic is 18 to 34. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So that's what you're going for, and you're not going to be showing the Care Bears, versus the Flintstones in a wrestling match. So I'd pay to see that, but
I want to see your tape collection.
Yeah. It's a good one.
Well, on the topic of FWA, you had a match with Johnny Storm, a friend of ours, a couple of weeks ago.
Sure.
How'd you like the match, and how'd you like working for the FWA promotion?
Man, I love working for FWA. Johnny Storm, I got to wrestle him twice, actually. I wrestled him up in BCW in Scotland.
Right.
And I got to wrestle him in FWA at the big show. I think it was Hot Wired, right?
Yep.
Yeah, and it was a blast. Johnny's an international competitor. He's a world-class competitor. He's a world-class wrestler. And we did some good things. I think the people enjoyed it, and that's what's important. And I enjoyed myself, and I think he enjoyed himself. So.
What do you find is the difference? Do you prefer working a guy who, because you're a pretty big guy for the territory indie type scene. You're 6'1", pure muscle, I'm sure.
Yes.
Do you prefer working guys your size or taller, or do you prefer working the smaller guys? Because Johnny is physically smaller than you.
Yeah, honestly, man, I prefer. I'll wrestle anybody. I love wrestling everybody. I kind of tend to go with the smaller guys because I can, I'm there. I can move with them for being a bigger guy, and it kind of works out well for me. Where people will say, "Wow, it's 6'1", 240 pounds," or I'm sorry, 6'1", 16 stones,
14
2
times.
rocks.
I can't add.
Carry the one, add a pebble. Yeah. So it makes me look better that I can go with those guys. At least I like to think that I can. So there's different ways to do it. So with a bigger guy, you kind of have to tone it down a little. You can't do some of the stuff because then you'll just get sat on or something. So.
Right. Your name was brought up on Raw last week.
Yeah, thank you.
Was that something you knew about in advance? Were you sitting there going, "Hey man, I heard about you on Raw"?
Yeah. If anyone wants to go back and watch Raw, what's it, October 4th or?
Was it this Monday?
It was past Monday, so Friday over here.
Yeah. So it was this past Friday. It was that past Thursday's episode.
Yeah, Ace Steel pulled what you would call a rib in WWE. So if you want to know my real name, go and watch that.
Yeah, you see how I've tiptoed around your real name for this whole show, and yet 300,000 people saw it last Thursday. Anyway.
There you go. Well, there you go.
So okay, what is coming up next for you in England right now?
Well, I'm always on tour with Brian Dixon's All Star Wrestling.
Right.
I've been wrestling for FCW over in Birmingham. I did wrestle for IPW UK. They had their first show. I'm going to Germany, German Stampede Wrestling. And then that's at the end of the month. Right. I'm also doing in November. First of November, I'm doing BCW in Scotland again. And that's kind of my upcoming schedule. Also upcoming will be Uprising 3, November 13th.
That's right.
FWA.
FWA, baby.
So be there. I'm not sure if I'm going to be there or not, but I recommend everyone at home should.
Right, right.
So, yeah.
Well, definitely, if they don't make it in person, I'll see it right here in the Wrestling Channel.
Yeah, that's right.
And just making sure we get those FWE bookings down the line.
It's November 13th, by the way.
And
It's Uprising.
When you go back to the States, what's going to be next for you? Are you going to be straight back with Ring of Honor? Or?
Yeah, the big Jushin Thunder Liger show.
That's right, November
6th.
5th and 6th, yeah.
Ring of Honor, Pro Wrestling Guerrilla. I'm doing some stuff for MRW in Kansas City. It's kind of local independent shows. So just traveling the loop like I always do. I'll be in Chicago. If you're in Chicago, come say hi. Yeah, I'll probably be at a Cubs game. So.
Now, some of the guys, before I let you go here, who TWC fans have seen a lot on the channel, I want to ask your opinion of them because you've worked with them a lot. First of all, one of our favorites wrestled Doug Williams quite a lot, and in fact took that FWA title over to Ring of Honor. Christopher Daniels, how have you found working with him?
I love wrestling, Chris. He's a class act. He's been around wrestling for so long. And
is that water hot?
I don't know. He's been around England a lot too, and like him and AJ and all these guys are just a pleasure to work with. And they know what they're doing, and they're veterans. So.
Yeah. Another guy is Raven, who in his own interview that we saw here a few weeks ago comes from the school of do as little as you can, which is completely the polar opposite, it seems to me, that most guys coming up are trying to do as many flips as they can, whereas Raven sort of takes pride in doing as little as possible while keeping the fans into the match. Do you think that up-and-coming wrestlers have a lot to learn from veterans such as Raven?
Well, it's like Raven's been along for so long, and he was back in the territories too. You can't forget that. So he comes from kind of the old school theory of kind of do as little as you can, get the most out of it. Yes, I think everyone should be kind of trained the old school theory. And then if you want, like AJ and Chris and a lot of these guys, and I'm not going to put myself in the same, but I'm just saying like we were all trained old school theory first. Know how to do the basics, know how to do everything like that. And then pick it up. You know what I'm saying? I didn't do anything really flashy in the first 1-2 years. And then after that, I started picking it up because I knew what the people wanted. So, so I think Raven has a strong idea. I don't think if he's against doing all of that stuff, if he's against doing like the high tempo,
the high
spots,
high impact.
The industry is changing. I don't know really his views on that. Obviously what he does works for him and it works for him well because he's a great wrestler. He knows what he's doing. So I'm not against. I'm not against the high spots and the high action. But I am for the old school theory of how to do stuff. Yeah.
You were injured recently, and something I'd like to ask of our guests is when you sustain an injury that puts you on the shelf, A, how hard is it to stay out of action and not get straight back to the gym and further hurt yourself? And B, does that make you think about, how long is my career going to be? Should I start thinking about that?
Yeah, well, what's interesting is, I was injured, I'd say it was like August, and I totally tore my shoulder, and I wrestled till October until I said, hey, I got to start, because business-wise, my body was starting to look bad.
Right.
I couldn't hit the gym. I said to myself, okay, I got to take 2 months off.
Right.
And I knew that it would fix itself. And nothing in my head really went, wow, how long is this going to go? I'm going to ride this out as much as I can. But it gives you an idea that we're not supermen, that stuff does happen. You have to be careful. And the same thing goes with the Raven theory.
Right.
Is that, if you're going to be wrestling, especially in Britain here, 5-6 times a week, Huracan Super Rana punches might not be happening every night. But if you could tell, if you could tell a good story and you could be, a professional wrestler and do it your best, the people will still like you and they'll enjoy your stuff.
Right. Yeah. Well, fans over here in the UK and Ireland have certainly enjoyed your work to date. We look forward to seeing you more on the Wrestling Channel, Ring of Honor, and hopefully we'll see you upcoming in TNA as well, because we have seen you on Explosion. Colt Cabana, it has been an absolute pleasure to have you here on the Bagpipe Report.
Thank you very much, and that's it.